It's 3 o'clock on a Wednesday. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. Lots to get to on today's program. Gamecock football coordinators have spoken ahead of the trip to Tuscaloosa. Gamecocks remain 3 touchdown-ish underdogs, depending on where you look. I've been kind of moving things over to ESPN Bet, if only because I'm at ESPN.com a lot. And right now they have it at 21. Over under 50.5. 21. Yeah. But it opened at 22.5. So, again, money slightly flowing in South Carolina's direction.
Slightly. Oh, very so slightly. On when it comes to the spread.
To the spread. Yes, to the spread. Straight up. Of course, you don't. I mean, what are you going to win straight up? What's the money line?
I have not looked at the actual money line, but I mean, it would be
like minus 220 or something.
Pretty good money.
Yeah. I'll double check that for you. Regardless, they're going to go play the football game. Our good friend Heath Klein, who now works with our buddy Chuck Oliver over in Atlanta, they had me on Chuck's program today, which I appreciate. And at the end, Elijah, I said, "Hey, Chuck, I got a question for you before I get out of here. Do you think," and Chuck lives in Atlanta, so he's an Eastern time zone guy. I mean, I think if Elijah could do what China does and just have everything be the Central time zone, he would.
That'd be fantastic.
Just one big country with one time zone.
One time zone, yes.
But regardless, I asked Chuck, hey, there's been some talk in Columbia about the early kick, and Carolina has an early kick next week in Norman. Like, do you have any evidence to suggest through the years that the 11 a.m. kickoff is in any way a positive for the Eastern time zone road team? And without, basically Chuck said, yeah, nah. If anything, it probably helps the home team because the road team is just really out of sorts at that point. They've gotten in on Friday. They're up super early on Saturday. Not that the local team isn't, but the local team at least is local. So they didn't travel the day prior. Look, it's a quick flight, so it's not that big a deal. They'll be in the air, maybe 45 minutes? It's not far. Maybe an hour.
Yeah, hour.
Maybe an hour. Just with takeoff and landing.
It's about a 6-hour drive. Yeah.
It's about 3. Yeah, they'll fly. It's about 350-ish miles. Yeah. You're driving it, right?
Plan to.
Yeah. I know Gunner's going.
Barring car issues.
Yeah. Gunner's probably already told his morning show audience he's taking the family.
That'd be fun.
Dude, there ain't no Wally World over there.
No.
But there's statues of Bear Bryant and Nick Saban.
Yeah, they have that.
That's something.
A lot of college kids.
A lot of houndstooth clothing items. Yeah, I think Gunner would look sharp in a Bear Bryant houndstooth fedora.
I like Gunner too much to even try to picture him in one of those. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody.
I think he should get one. But you grew up in Tennessee where people don't necessarily like Alabama.
Yeah, houndstooth is. I was raised to believe that it was tacky.
Uh-huh.
I still hold that belief to this day.
That's fair. I'm surprised that Alabama hasn't. Maybe they have at some point, and I just missed it. Like Tennessee has the checkerboard end zone. That Bama hasn't ever done like a houndstooth pattern end zone.
You know why they wouldn't do it?
Tell me.
Because it's too ugly.
Well, that makes sense. But anyway, we'll get into
way too ugly.
I just look. I think. And I say this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I promise, Gamecock fans, but you try in a week like this not to be defeatist. There are avenues that Carolina can take to win this football game, but they all seem to me to be like filled with potholes and like weird angled turns, and if you're not careful, you'll just miss them. If I'm going to stay with an avenue type analogy.
It's kind of like driving in Bowers Castle.
And it's part of what we'll find. I like that. It's part of what we'll hear from Dowell today is what Carolina wants to do on offense. But we talked about it with Ryan Brewer yesterday. We've heard some things from Shane in his presser yesterday. on just, where the struggles are offensively. And it feels like you take one step forward, sometimes two or even three steps back. And it did absolutely feel, for whatever the reasons, like there was a significant amount of offensive regression on Saturday against Mississippi. There is no doubt, and we're all guilty of this in sport. When the team, that you pull for loses, why did we lose? Not why did they win? Why did the other team win? And again, Mississippi is really good. Mississippi had a bad game against Kentucky. Mississippi should have beaten Kentucky, and they didn't. And it is a testament to Kentucky. And Ole Miss fans last week were not giving Kentucky any credit, which is fair. I get it. It's making my point.
Yes.
What's wrong with us? But for South Carolina, it feels to me that the two buzzwords that we used a lot at the beginning of the season, cohesion and confidence for the offense, simply are not there. There is, and the irony too is that by and large, Elijah, if I'm not mistaken, this offensive line has stayed healthy. Mm-hmm. The tight ends that help you block have stayed healthy. I don't think your wide receivers do a good enough job in the run game, and that could be better. And we've asked a bunch. Sometimes it feels rhetorically. Are there decisions, they are being the coaches, are there decisions about who plays at wide receiver based as much on an ability to do things without the football as they are with it? Hard to tell. There have been some injuries there, too, to be fair. I don't know how banged up Lenoris still is in a relative sense. It certainly feels like those same offensive coaches lost some confidence in Robbie Ashford the other day. And so you just try to find, okay, well, then where is the good? And there are, but and I told Chuck this today, too. I don't know if you agree with me. I might have said this week. I've said a lot.
We talk a lot for a living.
But I feel, and I don't mean this to sound flippant, okay? So don't anybody take it this way. And a lot of you may nod your head in agreement. I feel like the three best things that South Carolina does on offense are, A, have Lenoris run, B, have Robbie run, C, have Rocket run.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing, the easy access pass to Josh Simon will get you the occasional first down. I'll throw that. I'll
as long as you don't get it negated.
Yes. Also very true. Assuming all the linemen aren't illegally downfield or nobody's having
fellow wide receiver
interference.
Blocks you off when you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Assuming that part gets executed well, the Josh Simon easy access pass has worked as a good easy button occasionally.
Everybody knows that. So while I don't disagree with Shane in the sense that there are some positive things in the run game, there are not enough, and there are seemingly as many negative plays. That's not completely accurate. I know you delve more deeply than I into some of the PFF numbers and those statistics. But there are a lot of negative plays, not just tackles for loss either, but as you say, point of contact and where that point of contact is and then what you do afterwards. And you ask a lot of those guys because that line isn't always doing enough. And again, there's some pretty good linemen up there. And if these are your five best, and it seems like they are, especially after a bye week where you might have said, all right, listen, do we need to plug so-and-so in for him, X for Y or whatever. I won't name names because I'm not here to cast any doubts or dispersion. So I don't, I'll let Lonnie and Sean figure that out.
I think we can just say the failures of the offensive line are as a unit.
Yeah. And so you just try to figure out, and that leads me up now to your poll question today, because I think this is one that we can answer today and then flip the script on almost tomorrow, but let's get to today's.
Yeah, certainly. I think defensively, this is going to be you're going to have to really bank on them to keep you in this game. But also stuff happens, right? Like South Carolina kept you in the Ole Miss game. We still gave up 27 points because of some things that happened early on in the game. And against an offense like Alabama, they're going to get theirs. So that's what led me to ask this question this morning. How many points does South Carolina need to hold Alabama to for you to feel fully confident in their chances of pulling off the upset on Saturday? Do you think they can hold them between 25 and 30 and still feel confident? 20 to 24, 10 to 19, or below 10? Right now, 35.3% say 10 to 19 before they feel confident that they have a chance to win. The second highest is 20 to 24 at 23.7%, and a tie with 20.5% for 25 to 30. Very optimistic, or below 10.
Alabama this season is 4-1. They scored 35 points in their loss, and they scored 41 points in their win over Georgia. They scored 42 points in their win at Wisconsin. They scored 42 points in their win over South Florida, and they scored 63 points and probably could have scored 100 against Western Kentucky. I don't say that Alabama to somewhere between 10 and 19 points, especially in Tuscaloosa.
It is going to be very hard. You're going to need to get help from your offense. You're going to have to be able to stay on the field and at least, I'm not a huge fan of the time of possession metric, but sometimes it makes sense. If you hold the ball longer, it's less time for Jalen Milroe to completely carve you up. Like, Jay, they ran 46 plays against Vanderbilt. Would you like to take a guess at how many of those 46 plays were considered explosive plays, which are run plays over 10 yards or pass plays over 15? How many of the 46 were explosive?
10?
You nailed it. 10 of the 46 were explosive plays. Oh, yeah, and by some of those plays, too, they also ran in their own red zone, meaning you can't possibly get a rush of 10 yards more or a pass of 15 yards more. So realistically speaking, in terms of just available plays where you can have explosive plays, that's over a fourth of your plays, Jay Phillips, were explosive. That's what this offense can do. And even by holding them to 46 plays, they still scored 35 points. This offense only had the ball. Alabama had the ball less than 18 minutes. Not in a half. In the game. No, that's a testament to Vanderbilt. Let's take away each team's bad non-con games, okay? South Carolina, 31 points scored at Kentucky, 24 offensively. Yes. Important to note.
33 points against LSU and 3 points against Mississippi. And again, for Alabama, 35 points in losing to Vanderbilt, 41 points in beating Georgia, 42 points in beating Wisconsin in Madison. So, again, not trying to sound defeatist, not trying to bring anybody down. The one thing you need to hope for this week is that you find a way to be more confident and that you catch Alabama at a really, really bad time here and that they do allow one loss to become two. I say allow, but you know what I mean. That was one of the things we discussed last week about Mississippi. Hey, could you catch them when they were like, ugh? And again, I hate to come back around to it. I said I was not going to talk about it as much, but I just can't let go of the fact that you killed all the energy in the ballpark at the beginning of that game.
I've probably lost some sleep over that one.
I mean, it's just, I just, what could have been? I don't know. You could have, like I said, you could have punted instead, and Jackson Dart could have thrown an 80-yard bomb, and it wouldn't have mattered. I don't know. But you also could have punted, and you could have made Ole Miss go 3 and out again and play field position, and maybe had them punt from around the goal line. And who knows?
I'll tell you this much. It's harder to complete an 80-yard bomb for a touchdown than it is to march, 36 yards down the field for a score?
36, 38, whatever it was, yeah.
Yeah. One is significantly more difficult than the other.
803-404-6100. Answer the poll question. It's at 107.5 The Game on Twitter. We'll continue to discuss that. Jack Veltri is going to join us in a bit. He was covering the press conferences today of the two coordinators, and we'll let you go ahead and hear from some of what Dowell Loggins had to say, because I do think today is a day that we will discuss more about the offense and what the Gamecocks can do to try and score. Again, when you're coming off a game where you put up 3, you're going to need to do a heck of a lot better than that if you're going to get to a bowl game this season. You're listening to the Postgame Show. You know, way too often guys get stubborn about their own personal health, especially guys that are getting a little bit older. They're kind of set in their ways, been doing it for a while, or they think back, oh, my granddad never went to the doctor, or my dad never went to the doctor, or they were fine. Were they? Well, they were the same way. Don't be that guy anymore. When you're feeling off, you need to make sure that you can feel better, and that is why you need to go see Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the men's clinic. They are experts in healthcare for men. They've been doing this a long time. They're dedicated to making you feel better, feel like yourself again, feel like the way you used to, the way you want to. And it can be done. Set up that consultation right now. Call 803-875-MENS. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all treatment over there. Every single patient is an individual that this team gets to know. 803-875-MENS. Learn more about them online, themensclinicsc.com. Twenty minutes after 3 o'clock on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Jack Veltri coming up in about 10 or 12 minutes. Our buddy Lou Bajak will join us in about an hour. The South Carolina High School League voting yesterday on a number of alterations to the fall athletics calendar around the state. But, man, did they just kind of go, sure, y'all have at it. Good luck with it. And Lou's going to try to tell us what that's going to look like. I don't know if Lou has time in one segment to be able to do that.
To fully explain. There's a lot to explain.
Well, there's a lot to yeah. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into it right now. Lou will join us in about an hour. But if you are a fan of high school sports across this area or other areas, it's going to get interesting.
We have kiddos who participate in said high school sports.
There's that. Meanwhile, South Carolina goes to Tuscaloosa this weekend. Hadn't been over to Bryant-Denny Stadium in quite some time, but they'll need to score some points, and obviously did very little of that on Saturday. Let's go to cut 15 on today's new list, please, Elijah Campbell. Dowell Loggins speaking earlier today. Clayton White did as well, and we'll have some sound from both throughout the afternoon. But let's start looking backwards. Dowell asked, what didn't go well for you on Saturday against the Rebels?
What were we trying to is very vague. We didn't execute the way we need to execute. We didn't coach the way we need to coach. There was some good, and I don't know if you find good in losing, but you have to look at all aspects of it. You know, we crossed the 50-yard line 7 times. We didn't finish in the red area the way we needed to. It was definitely a game where we were going to try to shrink the game a little bit and go for it on some 4th downs. And so you start looking at what didn't work. I think we were 1 of 5 on 3rd down runs that didn't, we were trying to put it more in 4th and manageable and go for it. And we weren't explosive enough in the passing game. I think we had 2 explosive passes. It's a hard formula to win, no matter how efficient you are in the run game. And we had 2 turnovers. So when you're not explosive in the passing game and you turn the ball over and you don't finish drives, I think we had 5 drives of over 8 plays or more, and it wasn't a move the ball thing. It was a finish a drive thing. It was a finish execution. And to their credit, they played really soft zone, didn't pressure very much, and said, hey, we're going to give up yards and let them do this and that, but we'll see if they could put 10 and 12 and 13 play drives together and score touchdowns. And I'm sure it was because of, the option game and all those other things. They want to make sure they had eyes on the quarterback, and, that was their plan, and they executed better than we did.
They did. There's a couple of things, and he's right. I know sometimes fans will, again, of any team, any sport, after not just a loss, but a bad loss, just roll their eyes when they hear, well, where was the good? Shane has pointed it out a couple of times. We got across the 50, and into their territory 7 times and came away with 3 points. So, yeah, you did. Now, why didn't you advance the ball farther? And look, I know a lot of you want to blame Dowell. I get it. It's always easy to blame the play caller. I don't know that it's always the right thing to do. And I think I said this to you Monday, not yesterday, but Monday. Mm-hmm. You can have the ghost of Bill Walsh calling plays. But if you can't block, it really doesn't matter. And Dowell pointed that out in that last answer right there. We didn't execute. When I go back and watch, that's what I'm looking for. And y'all, what I see, you can disagree with me if you want to. That's fine. I'm not here to, convert you. But I do see a lot of just bad execution or plays blowing up quickly. There are some things you'd like back. Yes.
Certainly.
That always happens. But I think the majority, and I won't put a percentage on it, but I think the majority of South Carolina's offensive struggles do come from lack of execution, which can come down to coaching.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm. Or player development.
Yeah.
I think there's all
of that comes in.
To me, it's a player development issue at this point in time. You have some guys that are contributors on your offense that play vital roles that just simply need to get better. They need to get better at doing the little things. We hear a lot of talk in the last couple of days in these press conferences about detail, right? And that attention to detail. Like Dowell at one point today talks about when talking about the receivers, talks about the detail, the depth of routes, right? Like the depth of route can be what brings in a safety or keeps a safety back that doesn't open up a pass play. A lot of good pass plays that go for 20, 30 yards down the field are made available because a wide receiver on an underneath route really sells it. Mm-hmm. right? Or runs the perfect depth of that route. Doesn't run it too far, doesn't run it too short, is enough to take the attention of a safety and make them step up 1 or 2 steps too far. So a play over the top can happen if the other outside receiver wins their one-on-one matchup. But those type of details that they're missing right now, they're not executing those details. We're running mesh routes out there, and Nick Harbor is plowing over, an Ole Miss linebacker to where that's a charge in basketball because that linebacker's feet were set and was in legal guarding position. That's a charge. And an offensive pass interference in football, so it's a double whammy. But that's the type of stuff that you're dealing with right now, is there's a lot of fundamental aspects that you're just not taking care of. Do I think the play calling has been Broyles Award winning? No, absolutely not. I don't think it's not going to win many awards, but it should be good enough, right? It should be good enough to get more than 3 points.
There's more than 3 points in a game where you're across the 50 7 times.
And quite frankly, I mean, if you want to point at Dow for anything in terms of blame, I would say it is because being the offense coordinator, you're not just calling plays, you are coordinating the offense, right? You have to identify what this team does really well and exploit that in certain matchups. I don't think you've done that very well here in this game. And in the second half against LSU, you didn't do it well enough to continue winning the game even when Sellers wasn't in the game, right? I mean, that third quarter that we have alluded to countless times on this program tells you every bit that you need to know in terms of how the defense got worn out and you didn't do enough favors for them to pull out that win. So it's kind of one of those things that I don't know if play calling is the main issue. There's just a lot of development that needs to be done and needs to be done rather quickly considering we are going into Game 6.
I think identification, to your point, identification of who you can trust most out there and then finding the right plays to make them confident. This is what we talked about with Ryan yesterday, is going back to what Shane did with Marcus Satterfield 2 years ago. Now, they had more skill position talent at receiver 2 years ago than they do today. That's just, it's an unfortunate fact, but it's the truth. Nevertheless, what those conversations are like, and it's not like Shane's in there going, come on, Dowell, rock, and screaming at it. But it's got to be, again, man, I'm going to come back to it. Cohesion and confidence. You got to get these guys on the same page because sometimes they just look like they're not. And you got to do things that they're confident in. And, Dowell is an NFL guy, is more accustomed, even if he had a few years in college by now, and he has, is still accustomed to having a really big playbook because this is what those guys do for a living. And that's everything. There are no psychology classes. There are no biology classes. There are no history and English classes at the NFL level. It is football. And then some more football and some more football and some more football. And y'all already know that, but I'm just saying I make the Nebraska analogy a lot. I made it to you this morning during our production meeting. I'm not really kidding. And those of you who go back, Brewer doesn't always like it when I do this, but I'm telling you, Nebraska ran like between 12 and 20 plays, man. It was probably a few more, but y'all see the point I'm making. It wasn't
incredibly complex. No. They're not looking that much different.
No. And I told you, Tom Osborne didn't want to give those big old corn-fed boys from Nebraska a bunch of things. You stand up when the ball is snapped, and the man in front of you wearing a different colored shirt is the guy you knocked down on his rear end, son.
And then go find somebody else.
And then the guy behind you is going to take off and run. Got it, Skip.
All right, break.
Yeah. And then practice. Go do it again. Tweet. Go do it again. That's why they always won 10, 11, 12 games. Jack Beltry on the other side. More of his take on what the coordinator said today. You're listening to the Wednesday postgame show. Football season is well underway. Holiday season is coming up soon enough. It'll be playoff time. Y'all know what I mean. It is time to make sure that your home theater system is everything you have always hoped it would be. Whether you are starting one from the ground up, whether you love your setup but want to get into the latest technology, building or remodeling even, call my good friends at Integrated Media. Do yourself and your family and your friends a big favor. Maybe you've been to a buddy's house and seen something cool, or your brother-in-law, and you want to make him jealous, right? You've been to a sports bar even, like, man, can I do that at my house? Yes, you can. I mean, you might not want, say 50 TVs, but can you get a cool, wall of TVs and watch things, the way you want to with a bunch of different games? Yes. Here's what you do first. You call 803-948-8327. Integrated Media comes to you. They look around. You figure it out. You install it. You're happy for a long time. Do what I've done. Call Integrated Media. Talking Gamecock football on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Get to Jack Veltri in just a second. Again, Lou Bezak coming up in just a little bit, too. We do have other things to get to in college sports today, including, and hear me out here, the elimination of NLI, not NIL.
Two different things.
Very confusing. Well, not really, but it can be.
If you speak fast enough and you get your letters twisted.
We'll discuss the NLI going away very, very soon. Reminder before we talk to Jack, whatever his name is. No, I'm kidding, Jack.
Boo.
I didn't mean to. Go ahead, boo me again.
Boo.
All right, let's get it out of the way. There are only a few craft beer cards left. I'll speak slowly, enunciate better.
Words.
You can spend $30 per location at 12 different craft beer locations all around town. That's a $360 value for only $79. Go to 1075thegame.com and click on Sweet Deals. Or if you're a very adventurous sports fan, you can just wait until Friday, or technically next Monday, but play the Wild Card Showdown on Friday, beat Elijah and me.
Good luck.
And Elijah's on fire.
I'm on a heater.
Which actually brings us to Jack Veltri, who also keeps up with the staff picks of 107.5 The Game and Gamecocks Central. How's Elijah doing? Just, straight up, Jack. Is he okay?
Dude, last time I checked, because keep in mind I have not updated the picks yet this week. That's something I plan to do tomorrow. That's a tomorrow problem. We're day by day. But last time I checked, and this is the biggest surprise, y'all, Terry Ford, 107.5 zone.
Wow.
I think he's at the top of the leaderboard last time I checked. And Elijah is right behind him, I believe, in second. So 107.5 is killing it.
Showing out.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I think Ford and Yuva have the same kind of behind-the-scenes contacts. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, here's the thing, Jay. Yuva, and he's told me this many a times. He's let me know. He has not been good at picks this year for whatever reason. He's our quote-unquote two-time defending champ. And I think he went like 4-5 last week. So we'll see how he does this week. But it has not been the same type of production from the champ.
By the way, I love the fact that Jack is at the ballpark at the scrimmage. There's nothing like the sound of someone at a college ballpark with the ping of the bat. I'm so serious.
The BP in the background.
I'm so serious.
They got BP going on right now. So
that's good. All right, I'll ask you a body language question today from Dowell, especially. Clayton's defense, I thought, played all right, and maybe there's a lot more confidence on that side of the ball. There's a growing sense of frustration on offense. So we've heard some of what Dowell already had to say, but give us your take on how things went this afternoon.
Well, I think for Dowell Loggins, look, obviously Saturday's performance against Ole Miss offensively was nowhere near good enough, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. He took a lot of accountability today, and I think that's the theme of this week is guys taking accountability for not being good enough. And it starts with Dowell Loggins and his play calling, obviously, because he's the one calling the shots. And it wasn't good enough, and he took accountability for all the mistakes that happened. And he laid it out there. He let it be known, didn't sugarcoat it, because when you score 3 points, you can't really sugarcoat it. But he knows things have to be better, and it starts with cleaning up the penalties, the turnovers, and the sacks. If they can do that starting off this week in practice and stuff and carry it over to Bama, maybe good things can start to happen. But it has to start there, in his opinion.
Yeah, and Jack, I mean, I thought the Dowell press conference today was pretty interesting for a lot. I thought he handled a lot of the questions pretty well, but I still think there are a lot more questions than answers on this offense right now, and just trying to figure out what this identity is. And the one thing that I'm really interested in seeing what happens here in the next week or two is just how you're able to get guys open. I know me and you talked about it on Saturday in the press box. It almost seems like sometimes Lenoris would scramble to the outside and just would be going through his progressions, but not being able to find any open receivers, and that if there's a position group that hasn't really developed to the point necessary enough to win ball games in the SEC, I feel like it is that wide receiver group.
I would have to agree with you, Elijah. I just think at this point in the year, we've seen some guys step up and make plays, but we haven't seen the consistency. And I think that's what's missing with this receiver core, is that they aren't getting open enough. And you saw that, like you said, on Saturday, where Lenoris would scramble out of the pocket and try to make a play, and he'd have to end up taking off and running because his receivers failed to get open. Part of that is probably because of the defense that they're facing. Part of it is also just because you don't have that top flight receiver like you may have had in years past. So I think that's been an issue, and I don't really feel like we got a clear enough answer on like what the case is with how they're going to fix that. Again, I just feel like it's easier said than done. It really just comes down to players making plays and getting open. And we've seen it from time to time with guys getting open and creating space, but we just didn't see it on Saturday, and that was a big issue for me.
Talking to Gamecock Central's Jack Veltri. He's down at the ballpark, as you can tell in the background, as Coach Paul Maneri's team has fall ball going on this week and a bunch of scrimmages. I want to come back to one of the things that I asked you before, because I have it in my notes. Self-discipline is an issue. You mentioned that Dowell wants to clean up the penalties and some of those other things. What are they identifying, Jack, if you can read between some of the lines as to why this continues to be such a major problem at this point in the year?
Well, you're right, Jay. It definitely is an issue, and I think it just starts with Offensively, I don't even feel like the penalties are that big of a problem offensively. I think it's more so defense. Like, the offensive pass interferences and stuff, okay, those are kind of questionable calls now by this point in the year. I think it comes down to the defense is more the penalty-driven issue, in my opinion. But for the offense, I feel like it's more so the execution and the play calling and how that happens. I feel like mistakes are made in terms of guys just not creating enough space. Lenore Sellers missing on his throws, the offensive line not being able to block enough. And I think it is an issue when you give up 6 sacks and stuff and your pass protection isn't good enough. So it's not so much about the penalties, in my opinion, because false starts and stuff and PI calls are going to happen here and there. But I do think the bigger issue is the mistakes in not doing your job as a unit, because every part of the puzzle has to do their work to get it going. Because, look, it's not just play calling. It's, like I said before, it's the receivers, tight end. As Dell Loggins put today, it's on all of them.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. And I mean, going back to Lenoris too, you mentioned some of the missed open throws. Whenever those open throws were available, weren't bountiful by any means, but he did miss some throws too. And it kind of led me to this thought, and Jay and I kind of talked about it before we got on the show today, that yes, it was good that Lenoris didn't play in the Akron game because he couldn't get hurt or re-aggravate that injury. But do you think maybe missing out on a game and a week full of live reps and again, just any football game hurt Lenoris in terms of making him a little rusty by the time he came back, and that maybe is one of the reasons why there was such a lack of rhythm with the passing game?
Yeah, that was something that had gotten asked me a few times by, I think, some of the subscribers on GamecockCentral.com, and, I thought about it for a minute. I was like, it would be nice for him to have those live reps, but I think it's more important that he stays healthy and doesn't get hurt. So yes and no, it hurts him in the fact that he didn't have that extra week of reps and games against an Akron team that you really could have used as a chance to build your confidence. Instead, Robbie Ashford goes out there and builds his confidence. But to counteract that point, Robbie's confidence, well, not even his confidence, just the play he made were kind of all diminished once that game started against Ole Miss when he had the fumble. So maybe it would have been good for Lenoris in that sense. Maybe it wouldn't have been. Who knows? The point is, he's South Carolina's starting quarterback moving forward, and he's got to be better. And I think it does start with getting a little bit of that rust knocked off. I think he did that against Ole Miss. Granted, it's not going to get any easier against Alabama, but look at what Diego Pavia did, for instance, for Vanderbilt against Bama. He's a big physical guy. He can run. He can throw. He's not afraid out there. I think that kind of resembles a lot of what Lenoris can be. We just need to see it on Saturday and use all of his capabilities, but it also comes down to the fact that the guys around him need to be able to do more than what they did on Saturday.
Jack, last thing for you real quick. Tonight around 8, the availability report comes out. The word next to Raheem Sanders tonight will be what?
I think, we heard from him yesterday. I think he said he's been good to go and stuff. I would expect him to be not on the list. That's just me. I think he's going to be good to go for this weekend.
Okay.
He played last weekend. It wasn't great by any means, but look, it takes time to get healthy again. There was nothing in that game that made me feel like, he shouldn't play next week. I think he's going to be good to go for this Alabama game because I'll say it just like I did for the Ole Miss game. South Carolina needs him to win that game. They need him in there, and you need more from him. And if he can be any bit of productive as he was in those first few games of the year, that will make everything a lot easier for this offense. And he's a big focal point of what they do.
Appreciate you as always, sir. Jack T. Veltri to follow on Twitter, GamecockCentral.com. In addition to football, Jack will obviously have some write-ups on baseball because he's out there. Unless he's just out there working on his tan. I don't know. It's up to...
I might be, guys.
That's up to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Take it easy.
You bet. We'll see you soon. That's Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the Postgame Show on this Wednesday afternoon. Coming up in about a half hour's time, our buddy Lou Bezjak of the State Paper will be with us. Lou covers the Gamecocks. He covers high school sports. And yesterday he was at the high school league meetings as they decided to alter the calendar just a bit. But then they really kind of just left it up to each region to be like, hey, y'all just do whatever you feel like.
Which is always a great idea to just leave it up to individual parties with different interests to be able to decide what is good for the collective.
So we'll see if Lou can sort through the clutter.
No bad historical precedent there at any walk of life.
That's right. We'll get into that for you. Plus, some big news. Seriously, a couple of really big changes that the NCAA D1 Council has voted upon. And I do think these will go over well. I'm serious. Usually I would say that kind of sarcastic.
I think we've been saying that facetiously
for so long,
a long
right?
time.
There's a boy that cried wolf kind of feeling in there. But anyway, all that and more coming up for you, plus more sound from both Gamecock coordinators. Do want to remind you that we here at all our Cumulus radio stations teaming up with a bunch of community partners and helping out with Hurricane Helene relief efforts for families in Asheville, Greenville, and Spartanburg. So join us as best you can in supporting those families. The collection drive will keep running through tomorrow. And you know the drill by now, but I'll remind you, non-perishables, canned foods, bottled water, lots of things for babies, diapers, wipes, formula, pet food is a really big deal here too. Toiletries, feminine hygiene, all the paper towels, Kleenex, cleaning supplies, 409 and such. Just so much to do. Mm-hmm. And really too, blankets,
yes,
towels, underwear. I mean, these are things. I mean, there's so many people that have just quite literally lost everything.
Blankets that's an underrated one too, because now it's going to start getting a little bit chillier.
Up in the mountains, especially,
they don't have power still, and that's one that's not thought about. There's a lot of things that are the common things that we bring to this kind of stuff. But
12 Springs Community Church in Lexington, Brooklyn Northeast, where Terry was today, I believe, right? And then tomorrow, Brooklyn Baptist, right across the river on 378. And again, if you don't participate in our drive, but do participate in one somewhere, please just wherever there is one, if in your neighborhood, at your church, at your school, at your office, and I've said, we have a daughter who goes to school in Asheville, and when we take her up, we got a carload ready to go to take back, and her school's going to be distributing things. It's whatever you can do. Whatever you can do. And now, and again, I do not say this with reverence. I say it with fear. But Milton down in the Gulf, I just looked at the latest satellite imagery, and my Lord, what a frightening storm.
It's terrifying.
I mean, it truly, I mean, it's going to swallow Florida whole. It's so big and so strong. And it's going to take, and like we said yesterday, the Tampa Bay area, population-wise, not to mention tourist-wise. Orlando, same thing. There are millions of people that live across Central Florida, millions of people that visit Central Florida. Now, the visitors are gone, and hopefully most of the residents are gone. I read the story about the Tampa Zoo. The zookeepers and employees are staying, on site, and they got the animals tucked away as best they can.
Good luck.
Just things like that you just don't even think about, But do what you can, and if you don't do the, the goods themselves, Salvation Army website, Red Cross website, a trusted GoFundMe for certain organizations that are out there, because there's a lot of them. Read about a place up in Asheville where my wife and I go see live music a lot. And they've got to GoFundMe because they were going to have to move anyway. I think I told you about this place. Mm-hmm. It's called Salvage Station, just as an example. And where they are located, literally right on the French Broad River, they're going to have to move because they're building an I-26 connector on that side of Asheville, kind of the north side of downtown. And so this final fall, they were going to be like raising money and hoping to move to another location in Asheville. But their biggest thing was we need to keep our people employed so that we can move. And now there will be no more concerts at Salvage Station because it was completely destroyed as an amazing outdoor stage and whole just area. And it's gone. It's just gone. And that's just one of many. But like now, their employees, like they got nothing. And that was their big hub. They had some really cool concerts planned for the rest of the season. Just as one example amongst dozens, hundreds.
An entire city affected. That entire city affected.
But do what you can, y'all. I know we all have been affected around here, and we're South Carolinians. This happens to us, too, and people come to our rescue. It's our turn to help out. And, again, we're going to be helping the folks in Florida, too, because when this thing hits tonight, it's going to be big. Hour 2 is coming up. Love telling you about our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. Listen, they've been doing it since 1936, and it is helping out with all of your banking needs, whether it's a checking account, savings account, credit cards, car loans, student loans, home equity lines of credit, mortgages, you name it, they can get it done for you. And as a not-for-profit organization, they return their earnings back to their members in the form of lower rates and fewer fees. And now as rates have come down a little bit, could be an excellent time for you to shop some of the things that they can do for you when you need to borrow money. Check them out online. Go to palmettocitizens.org or stop into any of their 14 conveniently located Midlands branches. My wife and I love the folks up at the Millwood branch. We've been going there for years now as members of Palmetto Citizens. They help us out, ready to help you as well. Achieve your potential when you work with the great people at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. 4 o'clock, Wednesday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the postgame show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios, downtown Columbia, South Carolina, alongside Elijah Campbell, or should I call him Elijah the Greek?
I'd love to go 5-0 for you on a recorded message. Why
don't you start doing a recorded message for people?
See, I would love to do that, but instead of picks, I'll tell you that they're picks, right? But they're basically just jokes that I'm workshopping to ultimately just start using, and you kind of use that as like a case study to see which ones hit, which ones don't.
Yeah, a horse walks into a bar. Hey, buddy, why the long face? Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll start running commercials here where I'm like, let's go 5-0 for you on a recorded message. And then, you just call and it's me making dad jokes for like 30 whole minutes. Just a long recording and to see how many people actually stay and listen for picks that will never come.
I know you're a fan of the Cincinnati Reds.
I am.
On this date, 1919, your Cincinnati Reds won Game 5. Actually, they won Game 8.
Yes.
But it was the 5th. That's back when they still played a best of 9 to beat the Chicago White Sox.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah. But that's obviously the famous Black Sox scandal. But the very few people remember who won that World Series. But it was your Cincinnati Reds.
It sure was. They were big underdogs, which is why the fixing.
Davey Concepcion went 2 for 5 in that game. Cecil Cooper hit a home run.
I'm pretty sure Austin Kearns, had a 2-run RBI double.
Pete Rose had a off-field single there to just, oppo hit.
Willie Mopena, big pinch hit home run later on in the game, too.
Correct. So that's just a lot of different Cincinnati Reds.
Johnny
Bench had the day off that day, though. He didn't get to play.
He did not. No, he did not play. But
I don't even know who the
Tucker Barnhart definitely.
I don't know who the Reds' backup catcher for Johnny Bench was.
I imagine he never had to play.
Say Sparky Anderson and Russ Nixon probably just said, Johnny, you're going to catch. I remember how weird it was when Johnny Bench moved to third base the last couple of years of his career. I was like, Johnny Bench is playing third base? Now I'm a little kid, right? So,
yeah.
But I did know how great Johnny Bench was.
That's the equivalent of me watching Joe Mauer play first.
And if you're a kid.
A natural.
Well, I say if you're a kid like me, if you were a kid when I was a kid, you also remember the great Johnny Bench on an awesome baseball show called The Baseball Bunch. It's great. It's like a Saturday morning, instead of a cartoon, it's like a Saturday morning baseball show. It was awesome.
That's really cool.
It's awesome. Loved it. That and Mel Allen doing This Week in Baseball. It's great. Good times. But congratulations to your Cincinnati Reds on this date, 105 years ago. Would you like to see the World Series go back to a best of 9?
Absolutely not.
No? More money for baseball? But
Maybe.
only if people are watching.
I was going to say, are people going to watch for an entire 9-game series?
Speaking of baseball today, I did it on purpose. I'm so disappointed in the National League Division Series on this side of the country that I've decided, if you can see it, I'm wearing my 2021, Atlanta Braves World Series champions long sleeve tee. Just to remind the Phillies and the Mets that while they may still be in the playoffs right now, they hadn't won the World Series since the Braves have.
That's true for now. With the power of friendship and grimace, the Mets are looking pretty good.
I said to you yesterday, if you could say to me, okay, Jay Phillips, the sports fan that you are, you have now, like the Robin Williams genie comes down. You have finally been granted the opportunity to have both teams lose instead of joking around about it. This NLDS would be it.
The winner of Dodgers Padres automatically goes to the World Series.
Goes to the World Series. I would do that in like a heartbeat.
You got 3 life wishes just in general, and that might be your first one.
It wouldn't be because I don't like the Raiders, but I don't have anybody else in the NFL that I just do not like. There are times when there might be a coach or a player or something. Like, I just don't like that guy. He just rubs me the wrong way. But I don't have anybody. Like, I've never, as a Bronco fan, I've never hated the Chiefs, nor do I now. I've never hated the Chargers, nor do I now. So it's just the Raiders. And the Raiders. The Raiders are harmless.
They've become harmless.
They used to be very harmful. Now it's the same uniform.
I mean, they haven't been really harmful since, like, truly threatening and harmful since 2002.
And even that one, they kind of backdoored into the Super Bowl, man.
The Rich Gannon MVP season.
Yeah, I mean they were good.
Rich Gannon won an MVP, a NFL regular season MVP.
And like NBA, I don't care enough. I have become a big Premier League fan. So you might say if like Chelsea and Tottenham or Chelsea and United were playing, you wouldn't want that. That might be a close second.
They can tie,
but they can't.
That's a possibility.
But the two teams in sports that I pull against the most. Now college is different, so don't anybody bring I'm not really gonna go there because there's too many of that.
Right.
I have a few for that one too, but not this right here because this would so disappoint both massive cities and fan bases.
In the worst way possible.
Yeah. But unfortunately, one of them is going to win. And based on how the New York Mets seem to be playing,
Team of Destiny
I think
feel.
the New York Mets are going to win tonight.
If they win the World Series, they might make Grimace the MVP.
Oh, don't do that.
They're going to make Grimace the MVP when they win the World Series.
Don't do that.
And I will vote.
Don't do that.
I don't know if I have no way to vote, but I want to make sure that the campaign is underway to make Grimace the World Series MVP.
No. You need to no. Clark Schmidt's going to start tonight for the Yankees.
Boo.
Yeah. But I think Gamecock fans will appreciate that.
I hope Clark pitches really well, but doesn't get the win.
Yeah.
Lose 1-0.
Both AL series are tied at a game apiece. The Pods did win last night. Did I see right? They got all. I didn't watch the game. Did they get all their runs in one inning?
They did 6-5.
Wow.
And then the Dodgers almost came back and took them all back in the next inning. The Teoscar Hernandez home run.
That's what I was going to name my son if I had a boy, but I didn't.
Teoscar.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it's sick.
Yeah,
yes.
It's very cool actually.
Fun 2 innings though. That was a fun 2 innings of baseball. I mean, nothing happened afterward.
I last night we love Only Murders in the Building.
I have not seen it, but everyone that I talked to that has seen it love it.
It's let's see. Last night was we're in season 4. Last night was episode 7. 10 episodes per season. Big fan. So did that last night.
Very nice.
Yeah, took a sports night off because I don't want to watch the Mets do anything.
Fair enough.
I don't want to watch the Phillies do anything.
I couldn't get myself to, like, if the Atlanta Falcons are winning a Super Bowl and it's like 28-3 in the third quarter, I might stop winning. I might stop watching because, just kidding. No. Game's not out of hand. But all jokes aside, if they're in the victory formation in the Super Bowl, I ain't watching the rest. Can't do it. Tuning out.
All right, let me go to this. I don't know the guy, but I saw it, and so I decided to retweet it. Ross Jackson is the host of Locked On the Saints. I guess like the Locked On
podcast.
Yeah, they got those all over the place, right? Ross Jackson hosts Locked On the Saints and has also been a Saints beat writer. He said today, my controversial take on how the Saints should handle their quarterback situation. Pause, : start Spencer Rattler. He says, I get the offensive line question marks, but that shouldn't influence this decision. I know you're a big Saints fan. Do you believe that the Saints will start Spencer, who is technically the third-team quarterback? A lot of people were surprised when he didn't come in for Derek Carr the other day.
I'm surprised because all preseason long.
What do you think went into that decision?
The second stringer.
Well, Dennis Allen's thinking what?
Probably nothing.
No, he's thinking something.
Which honestly is the entire, that sums up the entire his head coaching tenure with the New Orleans Saints. Love him as a defensive coordinator. It's been a nightmare as head coach. Absolute nightmare.
Will Spencer start?
I think they'll probably I think they will have Haener start just because he came in relief of Derek Carr at the end of that game. I would rather see Spencer Rattler start. I think Spencer Rattler would give you a better chance of winning. And I like Jake Haener. That guy is a fearless competitor. Awesome at Fresno State. Put up really good numbers. They won a lot of football games. But Spencer Rattler's the better quarterback. Not going full on ourselves here.
I mean, what does it take? Excuse me. What does it take in this game, which is in New Orleans on Sunday afternoon, for Spencer to come in? I mean, you get like 3 picks. Just the Bucks are running all over you.
You get down 2 scores and your offense has no life. You have to.
Yeah.
You got to win this game, man. Do you want to be competitive in the division? You just got done dropping one to the Falcons. If you drop one to the Buccaneers, then you're instantly 2 games behind them.
Well, I know our buddy Matt Moscona, who also does a good job covering the Saints in addition to LSU, made that very point. It's one thing to go lose to the Chiefs. That's understandable,
Whatever.
and you do it in their building and on a Monday night game. That's all whatever. But yeah, you had that Falcons game and then you didn't, and that was Matt's point. It's like, man, that really makes that one that much worse.
It does.
Yeah. And now you have the emotion without trying to be too sappy about it. But, now Tampa's going to be coming in. And by the time this game gets played, the storm will have passed. And Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans will be, displaced. And their team will be representing them. And there's just that part of the emotion. And certainly New Orleans has been affected by this. All those things, whether we like them or not, or want them to be part of it, as you and I talk about a lot, we're all here for the story. It's part of the story.
Yeah, definitely is.
Now, it shouldn't affect the football, but it's all part of what we see on Sunday. But anyway, Ross says start Rattler, and he's not alone.
Yeah, because I'm there with him. I'm absolutely there with him. Why would you draft Spencer Rattler to not start him in this situation right here? It's not like he only played. It's not like an Anthony Richardson situation where he only started like 6 games in college or whatever, right? Or never started more than 6 games in a season. He's played a lot of football. He's gotten better.
What do you have? He had 30-something starts in college.
Yeah. And he got better throughout the entirety of that and showed that he could still put up good numbers even with a poor offensive line. They want to use the offensive line in New Orleans as an excuse to not play him. Buddy, did you watch any tape from last year? Did you watch any of it? Did you watch one bit of the tape from last year? No. At a South Carolina offensive line that was patched together with glue, Elmer's glue, not even the super glue or Gorilla Glue, which works mighty well, might I add. But with Elmer's glue, still running around making plays, throwing the ball all over the yard. Yeah, I want to start that guy.
I agree.
I've seen enough.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. Come back on the other side. We'll switch back back to Carolina football in just a little bit. But Lou Bezjak will join us on the other side of the break, our good friend covering both the Gamecocks and prep sports for the state newspaper. Major decision made yesterday to alter the high school athletics calendars all across the state. The high school league did vote on that. But it's exactly what those changes look like that is now an even bigger question. Lou will help us figure out what's going on when the postgame show returns. 19 minutes after 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Back into some sound from Dowell Loggins and Clayton White in just a bit, plus that big news coming out of the NCAA D1 Council meetings. So we got a lot more to cover for you here on a Wednesday. But as promised, our good friend Lou Bajak joins us. We gave Lou a couple of days. I know the meeting was yesterday. We were going to talk to Lou prior to the meeting, but then the Steelers lost to the Cowboys, and it was a late night, and we decided to give Lou a couple of days to just digest all that and do his job. So now he's here. How you doing?
Still trying to get over that Sunday night. Stay up till 1 o'clock, and then that happened. So, yeah, that wasn't a fun night.
No, I know. It was good, even though she didn't see it until the next day, though. But my wife was happy. She thought when she fell asleep, she was convinced her Cowboys were going to lose. So at least it was happier at my place than yours. But don't worry, the Steelers' defense is still very, very good. I think you're going to be fine. All right, now to the serious stuff. I get. Let's just let you give everybody kind of a primer on what's going on here. A couple of weeks ago, South Carolina high school football coaches went to the high school league and said, "Hey, we want to pause the season after Helene here. We got a lot of trouble. Some of us can't go to school. Some of us can't practice." That's sort of the setup, Lou. Take us through the rest of the way and ultimately a vote yesterday at the high school league level.
Yeah, you're right. South Carolina Athletic Coaches Association President Scott Early, former football coach, he's the new president. He sent a letter to Jerome Singleton saying, hey, we want to pause the fall sports season, not just football, all the other sports. Let pause it and make sure everyone's back for a little bit, and then we'll go from there. And so one of the things I don't think that was even brought up yesterday as one of the solutions. Then the executive committee met, as you said yesterday. There's three really solutions that they brought up. It was that talking points. It was push the season back a week and have the state championships back a week and keep the playoffs as is, 5 weeks, 5 rounds of playoffs. The first topic brought up was push the season back a week, but eliminate a round of the playoffs. That would keep everything at the same date as the state championships are now, in case there was a venue issue with South Carolina State and everything. That was actually, there was a motion for it, and that was voted down, I think, 9-4. And then the third one that they didn't get to was push the season back 2 weeks, have the state championship 2 weeks later, with full playoffs intact, and that never got discussed. But it was passed. The season will be pushed back in football for 1 week, and then the state championships will be the 12th through the 14th at South Carolina State. Playoffs are still intact, all 5 rounds. No teams. They don't shorten the playoffs, and that's what was brought up a little bit. I mean, I think a couple of years ago during COVID, they shortened the playoffs, or they took less teams in the postseason, but they thought that would be just you're thinking you're having so many bids per region and everything, so they didn't think that was a good solution. Many of the members did, and thought that wouldn't be a good way for the kids.
Was there any pushback on this idea? I know certain regions have certain needs right now, but was there much pushback on this on this idea that ultimately ended up getting approved, or was it kind of everybody agreeing upon this pushback of the season for a week?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the most reasonable solution. Everyone, you still get that week to make up games, and if you want to make up 2 in that span, you maybe have like 3 games in a 12-13 day span. It'll be up to the regions to kind of divvy it up and how they want to do it. Do you just want to say everyone in that region, especially it's really more with the upstate teams, the upstate regions that miss a game? How do you decide which game gets made up? That's for the regions, but I think everyone was kind of happy with this one. At least, like I said, you got the extra week to make up games, and then there was talk about if you didn't make the playoffs. Well, if they would have went with the eliminated round of playoffs, then could teams that didn't make the playoffs play an extra game just to kind of make up for a gate in that? But I think this was the most reasonable solution, and I think everyone, talking to Scott Early yesterday, talking to some other coaches, I think they were pretty happy with this. I know some some coaches wanted a 2-week extension, but that this one got it, and now we know. Now we have something to shoot for, and the regions can kind of go about and start fixing up and how they want to do makeup games. And even some regions, like the region with Chapin and Dutch Fork and that, they decided they don't want that extra time at the end, so they're going to make a bye week during the October 25th weekend. So push everything back for the 1st and 8th. That way, some teams were looking at a 2 to 3 week bye, because the top seeds in 5A get bye. So you were looking at 2, maybe 3 weeks off.
Talking to Lou Bajak of the State Paper, High School League voting yesterday to allow these alterations he's been describing to the fall sports calendar. You've touched on it here, and I don't know how problematic it may be, but when I read your piece yesterday, actually I was following along with you on Twitter yesterday, mentioning that we were going to have you on when I texted you during the show. And you had made mention of the fact that regions individually will be able to do this. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying there's going to be anything nefarious, Lou, nor am I suggesting that. But is that problematic? I mean, are there ways to are certain regions going to go, well, we're not doing it that way, or, hey, they can't do it that way? How much control does the high school league have over what can and can't be done, or is there really no way to manipulate this that's going to be unfair to another region?
Well, Jerome Singleton said yesterday, as far as if you guys need some help, guidance with how to do, we'll definitely be willing to help. But I think most coaches in the region will try to figure out their own kind of a way to make things work. And yeah, you're right. I knew there's one region in the state that we're having something issue a couple of weeks ago when this topic came about. They kind of got a tentative plan, but then that kind of got scrapped because some teams they lose a home game in the thing, or they avoid playing the certain teams. But I think they're just going to try to make it as fair as they can. If you miss a game, I mean, you'll kind of determine how. I mean, you're still going to get the same amount of teams from the playoffs. It's just a matter if everyone misses a game. What do you use for a tiebreaker? Do you go to the RPI, which 4A and 5A are using, which actually kind of comes in handy. But if you're playing a lesser team and another team's playing a team with a higher RPI, how does that go? It's still a little bit tricky for each region to see how they want to do it. But the biggest thing is to try and get some of these schools that, I mean, just had so much damage, the Aiken schools, Spartanburg, Greenville, to try and get some normalcy and get back playing football, get the kids acclimated, and then I think the coaches in each region can work out things from there.
And lastly, Lou, how does this kind of impact other sports? I know a lot of people listening right now not just have kids, playing high school football, but this is going to affect a lot of other fall sports as well, potentially. What's kind of the impact on those other sports outside of football that you've been able to hear about?
Well, yeah, the only other sport I think that had their playoffs or the season extended was boys and girls volleyball. They each got to push back a week, and the championships will be a week later. Golf, I think, is the same. Cross country is the same. I think they made a little bit different as far as you only have to have one meet to run in. Same with swimming. Swimming and competitive cheer, they just lowered qualifications, or swimming wise, they went and they pushed back. You got a few extra days to put in your times for the kids that qualified. And competitive cheer, I think they eliminated one of the qualifying tournaments as well. So they try to pretty much football and volleyball were the only ones that were pushed back. And tennis as well. I don't think tennis changed as well either.
I'm going to make Elijah a liar because as you answered that question, which is a good one, does this have any impact on like basketball or anything, just in terms of kids that play crossover?
Yeah, that was brought up, especially if it went back to 2 weeks and that. And I mean, some schools I know a lot of times the ones that go deep in the playoffs that have guys that are playing both, they just adjust their basketball schedule and maybe you miss a couple games early and then just make them up as the season goes along as well. And that's what we'll do. And same with the All-Star game. I don't know if we mentioned that. The North-South and Shrine Bowl will both be played on the 21st. and the North-South will kick off a little bit ahead, and they'll still announce Mr. Football at halftime. And if that player was playing in the Shrine Bowl that wins Mr. Football, I think they're going to stop the game and acknowledge him, acknowledge the player as well.
Good stuff as always, man. Appreciate you on short notice, and we'll talk to you again here real soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. That's our buddy Lou Bezjak, Lou at The State, to follow on Twitter, and thestate.com, of course, is the website. Come back on the other side. Major changes, 2 of them, that the NCAA Division I Council has approved. They are intertwined, but not necessarily directly related, and you're going to want to hear about them because a lot of people, especially on one of them, have been like, I'm kind of tired of that. We'll get you some details when the postgame show returns.
Holidays coming right up, and if you have a weight loss goal that you'd like to achieve before Thanksgiving or Christmas, now would be the perfect time to hop in the program over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss. Look, if anybody can be a testament to how well this program works in a short amount of time, I could do that. In 1 month, I did lose my goal of 20 pounds and did so with the help of my friends Paul Grant and Shaylin over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss. Fantastic coaching, fantastic game planning, not just a sports term, game planning with how I ate and how I exercised and how I lived my life, and being able to keep that weight off sustainably. Did all this without any shots, without any pills. They have the secret. And to get on the phone with them for your free consultation, give them a call now, 803-824-4210. Again, that is 803-824-4210, or you can do it on ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com. Results may vary. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you. They're causing some issues on the roadways. We'll start here in Richland County on Assembly Street near Calhoun Street. An accident's causing some mild traffic backup, as well as one on Clemson Road at US 1 at 2 Notch Road. George Rogers Boulevard at Bluff Road. An object on the roadway is causing some traffic issues on I-26 westbound at Broad River Road near exit 97. An accident on Johnson Marina Road at Highway 76 is causing some issues, as well as one on North Springs Road at Clemson Road. In Lexington County, we do have one accident on Platte Springs Road near South Lake Drive. And lastly, we just had an accident reported here in Richland County on Shop Road near Abbott Road.
Welcome back in. Thanks again to Lou Bajak for joining us. We were talking about some changes to the high school athletics calendar here in the fall because of the effects of Hurricane Helene. And, again, I don't know. It feels unwieldy, but Lou settling it down in terms of region by region decision making on some of these things. So good luck to all involved. Speaking of Hurricane Helene, do want to remind you that we're teaming up with several community partners, 12 Springs Community Church, Brooklyn Northeast Church, and Brooklyn Baptist Church to help gather supplies in efforts for Hurricane Helene relief. Canned foods, bottled water, diapers, wipes, pet food, toiletries of all kinds, blankets, towels, underwear. I even heard of some folks that are, getting some toys together, little stuffed animals and just some things for the little ones. So much is gone in so many areas, especially, the Asheville area, Buncombe, Henderson County, Transylvania County, Western, just a lot of WNC is just messed up real bad. So do what you can to help. And if you don't do it with us, these churches are taking donations until tomorrow. There are other places to do it. So wherever, again, your own church, schools, offices, donations to the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the legitimate GoFundMes that you might see out there, whatever you can do to help. Terry will be broadcasting tomorrow, I believe, at Brooklyn Baptist across the river over in West Columbia. So good stuff. Thanks to all involved. Two big things that the NCAA Division I Council has voted on. The first that I think is one that that fans will appreciate more, Elijah Campbell, is the move to shorten transfer portal windows. Now, listen, you're still going to have free transfers every year. And until such time as something comes around, I know that's still problematic. This is at least a hope that, it'll just simplify the process and help a lot of coaches and really, I think, players out too. But they'll shorten transfer portal windows for football, men's and women's basketball. There's going to be some that'll come around for other sports in just a bit, but this is the one they voted on for now. Reading from Max Olson, national reporter for ESPN, the council reduced the number of days players in FBS and FCS can enter the transfer portal from 45 to 30, but they did preserve the spring transfer window. They'll move forward with a 20-day winter transfer, December 9 through December 28, and a 10-day spring window, April 16 to 25. There was a push from coaches to come up with one transfer portal window, and they've decided not to do that. I think the reasoning being after spring ball, some kids still want to transfer. And quite honestly, and I'll come around to the basketball one in just a second, I don't know which one is better or not. I feel like coaches, Elijah, prefer the December window because really now, and we've been discussing this, unless you are in the playoff or just a really big-time bowl, like when Nick Saban implored his best players a couple of years ago, Will Anderson and
C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud.
Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Well,
To
I'm thinking the other Texan.
Right. To play in the Sugar Bowl. Because, we're Alabama and this is the Sugar Bowl. And they're like, all right, we'll do it, coach. I don't know if they wanted to, but they did. And they won, so it was fine.
I was there. They won handily.
I think they prefer that because that's basically spring A, right? And then there's spring B, which is, original spring.
You have winter, spring, and spring.
Yeah. That's what you're doing now with bowl games. If you get a bowl game, but if not, then that's the transformative period for you, right? But after spring ball, but it's too open ended. Coaches didn't like that. They want to manage. Coaches are creatures of habit, very controlling, and that's fine. You got a big. Listen, and now with the new changes coming, to have maybe upwards of 100 scholarships, it's just. I get it. I kind of feel like the spring window would be the better one, but then that also means all those kids have to stay after the semester. Look, and I know a lot of you right now, I feel it because I feel it in the back of my head too. Jay, we gotta put something around this whole transfer thing. I agree. I don't know what exactly that's going to look like, but this is at least a step to not necessarily curb the number of transfers, but to just tighten up the logistics. So I don't know if this is technically a step towards something better, but
I don't know if shortening the window is good. If we complain about kids moving for the wrong decisions, have we not stopped to think about maybe they make the wrong decisions because there's not a lot of time to have to make said decision of visiting a campus? Look, I know, I went to college. I know a lot of my friends went to college. A lot of people went to college. And a lot of those people visited those campuses before ever making a decision on where they wanted to go.
Sure.
They got to talk to people in their programs that they wanted to go to about those programs or that field of study and make an informed decision about where they want to go. I think one of the reasons why we have so many guys transferring two or three times is because they get in the transfer portal, a decision is made in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And you don't ever get to tour the school. You don't get to meet in person a lot of times. I know you still get to now, but I don't think shortening the window is going to help that part
I don't
of
disagree.
the issue.
No, I don't disagree at all.
I think this is a change for the sake of making a change to say, hey, we're doing something, even though I think it might actually have some more adverse effects than it does.
One of the things that I don't want to say worries me, but one of the things that I think is somewhat problematic here, again, this is going to shorten the December window from December 9 to December 28. Again, if you are a playoff team or a New Year's Day bowl team, and you've got you're a player on one of those teams, you got to wait till April? That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, and I know they do, like last year, for Malik Murphy, for example, it was, if your team's in the playoff, they give you like a 3 or 4 day extension. What's 3 or 4 days going to do? Again, back to the previous point. I make stupid decisions now as a 29-year-old if I only have 3 or 4 days to make them. If it was a long-term decision, I can't imagine what maybe some 18 to 22-year-olds giving only 3 or 4 days to have to make a decision where they're going to go and dictate, the next year of their eligibility. We see how much a lot of these players are valuing their eligibility by bailing out of seasons early to be able to preserve a red shirt. I mean, the matter of fact, in college football, not everybody's Cam Rising is going to be here for a decade, right? You have a limited amount of time, and wasting 1 year at a place because you didn't have all the info needed about what the place is going to do for you and what you can do for them, it can cost you a lot in your college career. It's a big decision to have to make, and it's a tough one, and I think giving them a little more time is probably beneficial. It can maybe cut down on repeat transfers.
I don't want to have them just dazzled by, one coach's quick sales pitch either, and then you realize, that is not at all. It's kind of like you get the brochure of the really nice hotel, and then you realize, that was 20 years ago, and now the place is all run down and needs paint, and there's rats.
The paint is peeling off the walls.
Men's and women's basketball will move from a 45-day to a 30-day transfer window. It will open on the day after the end of the second round of the men's and women's NCAA tournaments. So the day after the round of 32. The transfer window previously opened on the day after Selection Sunday. In all sports, players will continue to get an additional 30-day transfer window if their head coach leaves or if there's any kind of coaching change. It will open the day after the departure of the head coach is announced. I'm being a little flippant here. Is that the day that the school makes it official or the day it goes out on Twitter?
That because there's a big difference. There's a big difference in those two things.
So we'll see. All right, that's step one. I'll come back on the other side. There is another big change that has to do with how kids enter college and agree to what they're going to do, and I'll give you those details from the D1 Council when the postgame show returns. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Wednesday afternoon. Coming up, top of the hour, headlines of the day, more sound from the Gamecock coordinators. Actually, that'll be a lot of what we do in the first half hour of the 5 o'clock. And we'll get a drive around the SEC for you as well, and some baseball updates. I'll give you one real quick here. The Detroit Tigers lead the Cleveland Guardians 2-0. This game is in Detroit. Series tied at a game apiece, and we're in the top of the 6th. So there you go. Detroit winning.
Good.
It'd be a good story, man.
I would love to see, it would be really funny, and you're not going to find this as humorous as I will, if we have a Mets-Tigers World Series. It would be a cold day in hell.
I'll probably go buy a Detroit hat, that's for sure, or some type of gear.
Get you a Miguel Cabrera jersey.
Something. I'll call Grayson. Just say, hey, can I borrow one of yours, man?
A Maglio Ordonez jersey anywhere.
Grayson's probably still got some gear.
Has to.
I tell you what, just say, Grayson, just let me just have one of your like sweatbands.
And then you'll be the biggest Detroit Tigers fan for a week.
Heck yeah.
But a Tigers Mets World Series.
It would be weird for me to have to say, go Tigers, but I could say go Detroit.
That's right. The real big D.
I'll find a way if that's what it is.
Can be done.
I can assure you I will.
To me, that would be just like watching the Browns and the Lions in a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well,
where I will spend the entire time watching those games thinking, how the hell did we get here?
Yeah. I just hope the Mets and Phillies, again, I want them to both lose.
Knock each other out.
The whole store gets the flu.
They cancel the NLCS, winner of Dodgers Padres. Moves on.
The whole store got the flu. So I had to wear this ridiculous thing for you. We all now know the term NIL, name, image, likeness. You recruitniks out there are far more familiar with NLI. That's the National Letter of Intent. That started back in 1964. It's a binding agreement, rather one-sided, a lot of people feel, towards the schools. And not as good for the players. Today, it has been ditched, at least by and large. According to this piece from Pete Nakos, who is a terrific national reporter for On3. Instead, he says, financial aid and scholarship agreements are expected to be used. Recruiting rules around the program will still be commonplace. When athletes enter the transfer portal, he writes, most just signed an athletics aid agreement for years. He says the NLI has been under the purview of the Collegiate Commissioners Association, which did push for change in recent months. The National Letter of Intent will not exist, but similar written aid offers are not going away. Basically, when you signed an NLI, you agreed to be a full-time student for a year at a time at your school. And then it came down to there were no longer ways to basically force guys to sit for a semester if they signed a request for a release. Again, that came in with the transfer situation. And so basically, again, you were just kind of trapped for a bit because you agreed to be a full-time student for a year. So this changes that. Now, look, again, when a guy is going to a place for 6 months, this is still, again, just like the last thing we were telling you about, this is still somewhat problematic. Transfers are still problematic. Shortening the window doesn't necessarily curb the problem of a bevy of transfers that are taking place right now. So ultimately, Elijah, I think for both transfers and for things like this is where, and some people don't like it, but this is where some form of collectively bargained agreement that can be signed by a high school kid or by a transfer candidate makes the most sense. Now, some will always push back on that, and somebody will probably sue once they come up with some kind of framework for that. But it needs to be put in place to where, hey, you're going to agree to these new kinds of rules. I don't think you can restrict transfers, but I think you can find a way to have people sit out again. I've told you before, I don't ever want to see coaches have any ability at all to control where a young man or young woman transfers out. And two, again, just, This is not Russia or China or any other autocratic country. But beyond that, some curbs and some guidelines need to be put in place. But again, this is what we get when we have the NCAA fight so hard for so long for the same antiquated rules, lose every legal battle, quite literally, and then go,
I'm telling you.
because that's where we are.
The CB, collective bargaining.
Yeah.
That is what will not just fix your transfers and anything else. It also fixes a lot of NIL structure because you can agree on rules. And when you can agree on rules, things become a lot more simple and at least a lot more, enforceable. Rules can then become enforceable.
Yeah.
And then you can come up with rules like things like revenue sharing. Every single issue that college sports is facing right now, with the exception of conference realignment, because that's its own animal, it's fixed with a CBA.
Right.
Straight up. I mean, then you have rules. Then you can enforce rules. Then we can have full transparency on everything. We've made this so much more complicated than it has to be.
Well, that's because, again, they fought for so long when they saw the writing on the wall and said, we'll just spray paint over that. Hour 3 coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to, they're causing some issues on the roadways, but the first incident we have is a road closure due to a gas leak. That's going to be on US 176 at Broad River Road. Both eastbound and westbound at I-26 is closed, so avoid that area if all possible. In Richland County, we also have accidents at Assembly Street near Calhoun Street, one on Blythewood Road near Boney Road, one on Clemson Road near US 1 and 2 Notch Road. Got an object on the roadway causing some traffic backup on 26 westbound at Broad River Road near exit 97, an accident on Johnson Marina Road at Highway 76, one on North Springs Road at Clemson Road, one on Rouch Metz Road at Dutch Fork Highway 76, and then one on US 278.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Also the final hour of the post-game show. Let's jump right in. Gamecock coordinators Dowell Loggins and Clayton White speaking today ahead of Carolina's trip to Alabama. Gamecocks are 21-point underdogs at this point in time. It's a noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time kick from Bryant-Denny Stadium. Gamecocks, of course, rather inept on offense this past Saturday, I should say, against Mississippi with only 3 points, a second quarter field goal being the only points the Gamecocks put on the board. And a lot of folks complaining about what they see as a lack of explosive play opportunities. Dowell Loggins asked about that today, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, when the game starts going that way, you start feeling like you're playing small ball, and you're not winning, creating separation down the field, and the ball gets checked down, and you want, at some point, it's just you go back and look at the NFL, like. Explosive plays and turnovers win ball games, and when you're not creating those explosive plays, and you're moving the ball and you're averaging 4 yards a carry in the run game on called run. We had 31 called runs and average 4.1 a carry. We put up some yards that way in the running game, but you got to create explosives, and when you don't, you got to break tackles, you got to make people miss, you got to hit your scheme plays, and when you don't, you're never in control of the game.
Hey, look. You had a few explosives against LSU, certainly against Akron, but the ones against LSU, I think, were rather encouraging, and that's why I think there was so much of a feeling of, regression against Mississippi this past Saturday. Another big thing that holds this team back is, despite some good in the run game, and trying to find some things in the pass game, there are just way too many sacks and quarterback hurries. Dowell Loggins addressing that particular aspect as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a very fair question. It's everyone, and too, it's not just the offensive line. It's the quarterback. Make sure that we're throwing the ball on time. It's wide receivers creating separation. It's tight ends with being good in chip help, and it's all of us. It's us coaching, making sure that we're giving all the looks we need to give, and make sure that we're, getting better at that stuff. It was disappointing when you get there and you look at 6 sacks. And this morning I was looking and talking to some NFL buddies, and you go back and you look at ESPN's protection composition. Well, the bottom 4 teams in that protection composition are 1 and 4, and it's a trench. The NFL is a trench game. The SEC is a trench game. You got to win on the offensive line, and you got to win on the defensive line. And some of the time, when it comes to sacks, it involves everybody. So it's being conscious to get the ball out quick. It's creating separation. It's everybody, and we're working diligently to improve that, because it's definitely an area we need to improve.
And you wonder how much you got, worked on during the bye week. There's another bye week coming up here. But you got 2 more games before that. And all you have to do in the interim is go to Tuscaloosa and Norman. So.
Where things normally get fixed.
Yeah, nothing too difficult about that.
2 programs with 0 history of rushing the passer. Sacks. None.
I said it once already this week, I borrow from my good friend Michael Haney. At this point, you are who you are, and I think we're just seeing, especially when it comes to a couple of big-time skill guys, and Jack Veltri made a point of that when he was talking with us a little bit earlier. Ryan made a point of it yesterday when he was with us, Ryan Brewer. You don't have that guy right now. You just don't. That's unfortunate, but it's now through 5 games becoming a reality. Look, there's glimpses, especially from Mazeo Bennett, but he's still a brand new player. Mm-hmm. I know so many fans want to see more from Nick Harbor because of how he was recruited, and it's just not coming around yet. And again, it seems like when you see Nick, it's more on a crossing route than it is a go. And there has to be a reason for that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what those reasons are. Are they because Nick is not developing? Is it that Dowell is like, oh, that's right, Nick's in the game. Well, we should just – is it confidence in the ability to actually allow a deep go route to develop before Lenoris or Robbie are under duress and you don't want to call it?
Well, and here's the thing, too. Maybe you don't have confidence in his hands for a jump ball, because the crazy thing about catching a pass really far down the field, Jay Phillips, you don't do it with your feet.
Right.
I don't care how fast you are.
Right. If
you can't catch the ball,
right,
and you have a hard time maybe tracking the ball, timing a jump ball, because a lot of those passes, when you get down the field, if they're underthrown a little bit, that becomes a 50-50 ball.
Yeah.
And you got to be physical, and you got to out-jump somebody, and you got to battle and jockey for position. And you've got to be able to make a contested catch, which is something that separates the good receivers
typically
from the
while
great
looking
receivers.
Backwards.
Yes, exactly. And you don't do that with your feet. Like you got to be able to make that type of play. And if that part of his game hasn't developed, then you're wasting downs. And I think that might be kind of the whole point of not doing that. But the offense needs easy buttons, right? Listening to a really good podcast the other day, Split Zone Duo, one of my favorites. They're talking about Georgia's offense not being very explosive this year. They have an issue where they don't have anywhere near as many explosive plays as they have. The offense has regressed significantly from last year to this year, and their consensus was Brock Bowers was the ultimate offense easy button. Nope, you have nothing available in the passing game. Brock Bowers is going to find a soft spot in that zone. He's going to get himself open, the same way Travis Kelce does for the Chiefs. That's an easy button, right? You need 6 yards on a 3rd and 4, bam, press that button, there's your first down. South Carolina doesn't have an easy button. Everything is so difficult. And that stems from the offensive line, that stems from the receivers not getting open, and it stems from inconsistency at the quarterback position. If you don't have that, if you can't find what you're good at, and you can't consistently get that going throughout the year, you're not going to have an easy button by the time you get into late October, November, when you're going to find yourself in more one-score games. It would have been really cool to have an easy button in that second half against LSU, and LSU's offense was on the field for a majority of the half.
Yep.
Because then they're not on the field for the majority of the half, because you're extending drives. You extend drives with the easy access throws, the easy buttons that you have in your offense. South Carolina just doesn't have that.
No. And I think that's become, to my point about, as we started this part of the conversation, that's become abundantly clear at this point in the season. Can someone continue to emerge a little bit? Yeah, they can, in theory. But
in confidence.
Yeah, and against these next 2 defenses and in the venues you're going to play.
We're in October.
A&M's defense is pretty good.
Yeah, they did a lot defensively against arguably the best receiving core in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson's defense is pretty good.
Very
at times,
good.
So there's just a lot to be concerned about. Speaking of explosive plays, Clayton White, and because Alabama can hit some for sure. We didn't see Ole Miss hit as many maybe as they are capable of, but Bama certainly has their share. Clayton White today on how to avoid that defensively.
You definitely, it's all about really, understanding when you, at some point in a kid's career, he decided to be a defensive back. I always tell him that. So you could have been a running back, wide receiver, you could have been a student, you could have done a lot of other things. When you decide to play defensive back, that's the life you chose. And so in order to keep your, stay off other people's highlight tape, you got to really work on your fundamentals, which are just basic everyday things that, you got to do it when people aren't watching, because one mistake as a DB is 7 points. So you got to be the most disciplined, the most hardworking player there is behind closed doors, because one mistake can just show up. So you got to keep grinding at it. When you decide to be a DB, you got to understand that's part of it.
There you go. Mindset. Yeah, as much as a lot of things, and the this is the business we've chosen. I'm hearing Hyman Roth.
It is. I mean, it is. And then you're going to line up on Saturday across from Ryan Williams, who, yes, we all get it. He's 17 years old. He is not legally old enough to vote in this next presidential election because 17. But he's one of the best route runners in the country right now, and he makes so many guys miss after the catch that you cannot be afraid to be embarrassed by him, because when you have that type of paralysis by analysis, you're going to get locked up. You're going to get your ankles broken. You got to be able to just be as physical with him at the line of scrimmage as possible and play with a fearlessness that is going to be required to defend him, especially if O'Donnell Fortune's not available.
Right.
He missed the entire second half on Saturday against Ole Miss. And it looks like, the Ryan Williams thing might be an assignment for Judge Collier, which would be the biggest assignment of his career.
Yeah, here's Clayton White, cut 3, Elijah, on the DBs without potentially O'Donnell this weekend.
Well, the guys stepped up and came in and played, and we always had confidence in them. So feel great about O'Donnell playing this Saturday. Just a little thing that had to get cleared up, but I think that he should be ready to go. And but the guys that came in between Vicari and Judge, obviously Judge had a very productive football game, and Emory came in. Emory slipped on the play, but that's life at corner. One mistake can almost get you 6 points. But I was proud of how those guys stepped up, and they had the right look in their eyes as if like they weren't afraid. There was no wide-eyedness stuff going on, but I love how they attacked it.
I'm not going to sit here and say I feel for Clayton. Clayton's well paid. But when you look at the dichotomy of Saturday's ball game, I think we've all agreed, by and large, this defense did well enough to help you win. Mm-hmm. And you put them in a couple of situations that they didn't ask for, and they, again, it just keeps coming back to early in this game. You don't do what you did, and you let, as Ryan Brewer said yesterday, you let your defense eat. You let them on the opening drive, and the place went nuts for it. And you have every reason to believe that they could have done that again. There's a lot of reasons to believe, as I said, that Jackson Dart throws an 80-yard bomb too. I get it. But, man, I wanted to see that defense be able to keep their ears pinned back. And it just wasn't allowed to happen. And I feel badly because I don't think a lot of people are criticizing the defense this week. But I feel badly that there's a couple of things that seem to glare out. Mm-hmm. But you can't ask them to do that much more than they're already doing. That's my opinion. But I think they played well enough by and large. I mean, I don't have it in front of me right now, but Ole Miss was terrible on third down.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like, I want to say it was akin to the Kentucky game.
3 for 13.
Yeah. They were 1 of 10 against Kentucky, 3 for 13.
I mean, you did
against South Carolina.
And that's just one facet, I know, but that's a big facet, and you did well enough.
And you locked up because the average third down to go distance was 5.5 yards.
You did. I mean, the defense played well.
Yeah.
The defense played well.
More than well enough to win the game. Yes. I mean, you stuffed 24% of their runs. They love to run the ball. That's one thing that opens up their pass game a lot. In a fourth of their runs were stopped at the line of scrimmage or for a loss.
It's impressive.
That wins you a lot of games, man. That wins you a ton of games.
So, and again, I'm not saying anybody is, putting Clayton on the spot or any kind of, I like this defense. Look, most people probably believed South Carolina would be 3-2 right now. How you got there is what stings, because that's what I always say. It's not your record. Tell me how you lost. I realize how you lost against LSU, and you didn't need to. Mm-hmm. I realize how you lost against Mississippi, and at least some of that game you didn't need to. My point being, if you beat yourself in games or contribute to your own defeat in such a way, so that's why fans are rightly, I think, a lot more frustrated about a 3-2 record where you probably should have air quotes on paper 3-2. I get it.
It's the regression on offense. Yeah. It's the look. It's you thought you made leaps and bounds progress with how you looked in the first half of that LSU game. Lenoris got hurt, and I still firmly believe with the way he was playing in that game, if Lenoris didn't get hurt, you win that game. It doesn't matter what is called, not called, whatever, right? I firmly believe you make out a Willie B with a win, with College game day in the house and all that good mess if Lenoris never gets hurt and you stray away from moving the ball along like you did. But then to look like that in that first half, get Lenoris back for another start, have basically the gang back together for the most part, as healthy as you can be in the middle of a football season, and look like that, that is the thing that's going to sting the most out of all of this.
Real quick to wrap up our integrated media headlines of the day. The baseball playoffs continue. As I said earlier, Tigers leading. Now it's 3-0. Tigers over the Guardians. With Tigers win this one, they go up 2-1. It's in Detroit. Phillies and Mets just got started in New York. That one is Mets 2-1 tonight. Clark Schmidt starts for the Yankees in Kansas City. That series tied at a game apiece. And tonight the Dodgers are at the Padres. San Diego took a 2-1 lead in that series. All these are best of 5. By the way, more sound, some interesting stuff from Dow on how to fix the offense coming up.
Quick word with our friends over at Prize Picks, giving you a chance to cash in on your football prowess, because I know you've got it. Look, Prize Picks is my favorite daily fantasy app, and it's a great way to cash in this football season. Look, Kansas State, Colorado, big game on Saturday. Does Shedeur Sanders go more or less than 309.5 passing yards? I don't know. I'm feeling less. That Kansas State defense, pretty good, but it can win you some money. And it can win you some money, and you can get paid in as fast as 15 minutes because all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And let's say Shedeur Sanders gets hurt. Don't wish that on anybody, but if he does in the first half, don't worry about it because Prize Picks has injury insurance. All of that and more. And look, if you download the app today, use promo code 1075GAME, you can get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
20 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell is about to leave, but he's not just like ditching me. You're
Not totally.
You're gonna go do something really fun here. This is like year 2 for this.
I was invited to a air quote celebrity boiled peanut eating competition, and I was in it last year, and I was next to last. Failed miserably. I think I only had like 16. So we're
How
shooting
long?
to be in
How
the 20s.
long are you given for said competition?
I want to say it's like a minute. It's not very long. It flies by, but I couldn't even tell how long it was. It felt like an eternity.
16 in a minute feels like a lot. I mean, you can't put the whole thing. This is not like Joey Chestnut stuffing hot dogs in it. You can't put the shells in your mouth.
No, you can't. No, you have to be able to take peanut out of shell and eat peanut.
And if you get one of those little squishy ones, I mean, that's not fair.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. I'm changing my strategy this year. I'm not going to give away my secrets.
Okay. No, I don't want you to
If
do
you're at
that.
the fair, come by. Academic stage.
All right.
I want to make a mess.
Well, I'm pulling for you. And bring us back some boiled peanuts.
Hopefully, I'll bring back a golden peanut trophy. That's the goal here. We're going for that golden peanut.
Glad you said golden peanut. Have a good time. In the meantime, hey, look at you.
Hey, buddy. Well,
You like-
I got the short straw and got stuck with hanging out with you. I said everybody, no, I got to go downstairs. I want to hang out with Jay.
Yeah.
I meant to say.
Well, I mean, you don't want to know that I was requesting every other board op that we had to come down here, and they said I can't. And it's like, oh, well, I guess it'll be Ford.
Hey, by the way, what other quote-unquote celebrities are in this thing?
I have no idea.
I mean, do you think like maybe, I don't know, Taylor Swift?
I don't think she's available. I've also found that folks from north of the Mason-Dixon line don't typically like boiled peanuts.
They're an acquired taste. I love peanuts.
Yeah, I mean,
I do.
I can eat my weight in boiled peanuts. I make a pretty good batch of boiled peanuts. So
I've had them. They're fun.
I learned that a long
They're
time
fun.
ago.
They're all right. I mean,
My granddad was good at making them, so I've figured that out.
I like the regular old peanut myself, but the boiled peanut's solid.
Roasted peanut is fine.
Yeah,
You know,
all right. I mean,
what you get
peanuts
with
are
little
good,
Mr.
man.
Peanut in the jar, those are good.
Yeah. Yeah, that weird guy in the jar.
Cracking them open at the game is, I don't really eat peanuts at games.
I don't either. I don't do that.
It's too much. I'm trying to watch a game.
Like outside though, if like you're at a tailgate hanging, I can sit there and knock off like 7 pounds of peanuts.
Oh man, no, listen, I'll make a big batch of boiled peanuts and I'll sit and eat. Just make sure you got a lot of water.
Yeah, pretty good idea.
They get salty real quick. All right, now Terry's going to hang out for the rest of the hour. If you've got the cut list in front of you, sir, from today, make sure you've got that with the brand new ones with Dowell Loggins. I'll let you make sure you have that all set up before we get into some of that. But Dowell has spoken today at length on a couple of big issues around the team. And I think more than anything, Terry, what frustrates fans, you saw a little regression last week, and you just don't know where that next big step forward is going to come from. I mean, look, Lenoris is going to get better, and this line can continue to do things a little bit better, but what does that look like from an incremental standpoint? And what does it look like when you're asked to go do it at Bryant-Denny Stadium and at Memorial Stadium in Norman the following week? It's not to say, oh, you're dead in the water. I don't mean it that way, but if you look objectively at what this team didn't do offensively on Saturday, it's just pause for real concern.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's the best defense you've played against all year.
Yeah.
That's a talented crew that a lot of those guys are going to be making money in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I guess the concern is, okay, you ran up against a real defense and it didn't go well for you. So moving forward, Oklahoma's got a real defense. Might not be as good talent-wise on paper as Ole Miss, but
it's good, man.
Oklahoma's really good on D. Texas A&M's getting better on D. So you got some more defenses coming, and you got to figure some things out, man.
That's your next three.
You got to. Now, the funny thing with Alabama, Jay, is their last 2 games, they've been bludgeoned on defense.
Their last, Elijah made a great point. Their last 6 quarters, they were fine in the first half against Georgia, but maybe because Georgia was just shell-shocked. But once Georgia went into halftime and figured it out. But, yeah, Bama's last 6 quarters on D have been bad. And I keep pointing this out. It's just remarkable to me. Vanderbilt stayed on the field for more than 42 minutes.
Think about that for me.
I mean, Vanderbilt
Yes.
stayed on the football field for 42 minutes and I think 17 seconds against Alabama.
You know, the thing about, I mean, Tyler was, and I wish I could remember the guy's name, but Tyler watched, because you know, Tyler and Elijah are under 30. All they do is watch YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I'm over 50, and I actually watch a lot of YouTube.
Now we're going to forget you said that. No, so he watched this guy who breaks down film, and he broke down the Bama film of Bama Vanderbilt, and also obviously did the Bama Georgia. Bama is playing, not to get all down the rabbit hole of, you know, film nerd, but they're playing one type of defense and they're not coming out of it. And so Vanderbilt watched the film of the second half with Georgia, and Georgia was just basically running basic stuff like slants and things like that, because with the way Alabama's playing D, these things are open. So Vanderbilt watched the film of the second half with Georgia, right? And Vanderbilt said, we're going to do it till they stop it or change their defense. And they never did.
Right.
So the hope, I guess, sitting here, you and I yapping, because you know we don't have the station turned on, is the idea that hopefully Alabama doesn't adjust and they say, no, we're playing what we're playing. We're just going to get better at playing it.
Yeah.
And if they still have these issues that they're not changing because they're going down that old school coaching route, this is who we are and what we do, maybe there's some plays to be made to help this offense get cooking. That's one thing. If you want to go glass half full, you could think about maybe Alabama is just doing this until they start being better at this. So
we'll come back on the other side, part of the drive around the SEC, and I'll let you hear from Dowell on a couple of things that he believes he can do better and what this team can do better. And there's a good answer here on how, as quarterbacks coach, he is working on helping Lenoris Sellers take those next steps as well. So we'll do that for you. Part of the drive around the SEC. You're listening to the Postgame Show. You're waking up sometimes and you feel a little stiff and not quite as limber as you want to be, bothered by the back, neck, shoulder, joint pain. Get back in the game with our friends at the Joint Chiropractic Centers. Local owners Janet and Bob Keene are ready to help you out. They want you to be in and out quickly. You're not going to miss your lunch hour. You're not going to miss time at work. Monday through Friday, 10 to 7. Saturday, 10 to 4. You don't need appointments, and you don't have to worry about insurance. Maybe you say, I've never been to a chiropractic center. I'm not sure what to expect or what happens there. Listen, an initial visit with a consultation, an exam, and a chiropractic adjustment is just $29. And again, no appointment necessary. Harbison, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch off Killian in the Northeast, Sunset in Lexington, and always online at thejoint.com. They're convenient and affordable, and they want you to know that at The Joint, you don't have to feel bad to feel better.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to. They're causing some issues on the roadways, but the first incident we have is a road closure due to a gas leak. That's going to be on US 176 at Broad River Road. Both eastbound and westbound at I-26 is closed, so avoid that area if all possible. In Richland County, we also have accidents at Assembly Street near Calhoun Street, one on Blythewood Road near Boney Road, one on Clemson Road near US 1 and 2 Notch Road. Got an object on the roadway causing some traffic backup on 26 westbound at Broad River Road near exit 97. An accident on Johnson Marina Road at Highway 76. One on North Springs Road at Clemson Road. One on Rouch Metz Road at Dutch Fork Highway 76. And then one on US 278.
It is Drive Around the SEC time. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Terry Ford at Master Control. Elijah pulling double duties, getting the traffic out of the way. Thank you, sir.
How about a guy doing traffic driving to a boiled peanut competition?
Heading down to do, I need some video of this boiled peanut competition.
Yeah, I would like to see a little boiled peanut
And a minute is not enough. I mean, give me like 5 minutes to eat some boiled peanuts, man.
I think it's interesting there's a celebrity boiled peanut eating competition.
Well, this is the South.
Yeah.
And here in South Carolina, we do like our boiled peanuts. I'll tell you that much.
There's a guy at the tailgate over at the party lot at Sound and Images who brought us boiled peanuts last time. They were good.
Yeah, good.
Very good.
Any truth to the rumors that Adam Vance does indeed have at the party lot a monogrammed lampshade that he puts on his head and runs around?
Yeah, well, it's always everything he owns is monogrammed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man's got his initials everywhere.
Sure.
He has a cute little tattoo we can't speak of.
No. Didn't. This is a family show, man.
Hey, carry that mental thought in your back of your head the rest of the night.
This is why we talk about these things in the fourth hour. That's how that works. I know you've forgotten that now that we don't work together anymore on a regular basis.
We haven't done this in a while.
That's a fourth hour thing, not a third hour thing. We'll come back around to some of the things going on in the SEC in terms of matchups this weekend, but I do want to stay because I think it matters a lot to you guys, and that's hearing from Dowell Loggins about where to go next with this offense. So we'll give you a couple of cuts here, but first is what he's looking for in terms of the process of getting better offensively.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have time for two questions. He said that we could talk about that for 30 minutes because it is a great question because there is a lot on a young kid, and we have had a lot of moving parts with the injuries and youth and trying to figure out where to put people and do those things, and Lenore's being banged up and then Rocky gets banged up, but it's also an opportunity for other people to step up and to help fulfill a role in a game, and it's also the message in a world we're in right now is with social media and hanger-oners and all this stuff, all the noise that's in these kids' head is to, like, when you walk in the door every day, you have to focus on the process of getting better, and you have to put all that other stuff, all the outside noise to the side and focus on the tape, because our tape, when we hit play on that with that remote over there, that's our resume as football players and football coaches, and right now ours isn't good enough. And there are some things that we can praise the good and coach the bad really hard. We have good kids, so they're able to take coaching, and there is good. It's not like, wow, oh my gosh, like we got no chance. Like, we've proven that we can do some really good things offensively. We're just not doing it consistently enough, and it's the process of growth and cataloging reps. And when there is someone goes down, then the next person has to be ready to step up. And if you're not in, it's also a message to those other guys like, hey, that's how fast you go in. You're one play away. You're 2 plays away, and you have to have the right mindset, because if you're not getting mental reps, if you're not paying attention, if you're not learning from someone else's rep, positive or negative, then you're hurting the team. So that's really when you talk about the messaging is do everything you can to improve your value, which will improve the value of the team.
I think it's interesting because, as he said there, how do you identify what you most need to work on? I think these kids know it, and I think that's one of the things that's frustrating right now, Terry, to fans, is you've heard that refrain from Shane and Dowell almost all season. We've got to coach better, and we've got to develop better, but it doesn't always feel like it's happening. And again, you have a game where you regress. You make a good point, and Elijah and I have talked about it. It's interesting that the Mississippi defense seemed to be that much better than the LSU defense, because that is not something we would typically expect. And maybe it was, but how much of it, it's hard to say, too, which is why I'm really interested in their game this weekend, because I think in some indirect way, we may be able to learn a little bit more about where South Carolina is when we watch Mississippi go to Baton Rouge. Yeah. I do kind of believe that. And for those, take this as you will, as I always say, Mississippi's going to LSU as a favorite.
Right.
And, I mean, how often has that happened in the history of Southeastern Conference football? So they are really good, but what more can you do? What more can you be on offense? One more here, and then we'll kind of collectively talk about both of these cuts. The very next one, please, Terry, number 23. All right, so you need to improve, Dowell. That's what he was asked today. How do you prioritize what must be worked on?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's what gives us gray hair as coaches, and why we move a lot. But it's the things before you can win, you have to stop the things that lose football games, and it's the sacks, it's the turnovers, it's the penalties, and that's what you have to attack. We have the right type kids that play hard. Are we as experienced as we want to be? Heck no, we're not. But the only way to get experience is to play. But we have to attack every day at practice the things that get you beat first. And that's where we're going to show improvement. And that's where we have to create consistency, is those things. Because then, you know what, if that happens, the 8-play drive, the 10-play drive ends in points versus, going 10 plays, getting across the 50, and you come out with no points 7 times. Like, that's unacceptable. But how do we fix it? Well, that's why you got to work really hard at figuring out what wins games and what loses games. And sometimes it takes young people some time to figure that stuff out, and they get frustrated. But the consistency that you're trying to build, the only way to do it is through practice and making sure that we're all on the same page with the same message of how we're going to win football games. And there are certain ways when you do have a good defense like we do, and we do play pretty good special teams around here, like understanding also what wins complimentary football, which we did against Kentucky. We didn't turn it over. The ball bounced our way a couple times. We finished in the red area. We were really close to playing that way against LSU. You take away 2 turnovers, and we're playing winning football, and we're giving ourselves a chance at the end of the game to win the situation, the 2 minute to go to overtime if we knock down that field goal. Like, there's a lot of good that comes, and then you take this next step and you take a step backwards. So now it's how do you respond? Like, we lost a home game where we didn't play well enough, and the tape tells us what we need to work on, but it's the messaging of we have to clean up the things that lose games.
And they do, and that's something that Shane has talked about a lot. I put down in my rundown today, Terry, for my own notes, and we talked about this with Jack Veltri in our first hour. Self-discipline is an issue. It's not that this is an unruly team that goes out and gets a bunch of 15-yarders for unsportsmanlike or anything like that. When I say self-discipline, I don't mean that this is a bad team. I don't believe that it is. But there are things that you must be aware of. Mm-hmm. And if the coaches are saying we've made them aware and it's still happening, one of the things, and you and I have talked about this a bunch when we work together, and we do this as parents too, where's the disconnect? Mm-hmm. And how do I plug that back in? Where's the reach problem? And that to me might be, in all honesty, the biggest issue this ball club has right now on offense.
And some of the stuff is over and over, right?
Yeah.
I mean, little things. I mean, like and I don't want to pick on him because it's not just him, but just take an example from Saturday. Nick Harbor comes in and commits offensive pass interference. It's a blatant offensive pass interference. You just can't go and box someone out, for an example.
And kills a nice play on they gave you a first down.
Right.
And instead of 1st and 10, it made it 3rd and 20.
Exactly. And you just can't do that. And I know Nick's raw. I get it.
Yeah.
But still, at some point, that light bulb has to come on. A pick play doesn't mean I actually pick him. It means I'm kind of, oops, did I get in your way?
Yeah.
So sorry.
And that's what Ryan Brewer said yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like you can't go lay him out.
Yeah, you can't actually pick him.
Right.
And so
Elijah called it a charge in basketball.
Right.
I'm waiting for the ref to put his hand behind his head.
And Nick obviously charged.
Yeah.
But it's just the idea that kind of thing, you get in the middle of the year now, it's got to be frustrating to go, why are we still doing that?
Yeah.
Or the illegal man downfield, which has been a thing. That's timing. That's because the offensive lineman has that clock in his head when it's time to go. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's an RPO where Livy Lenoris at the last minute was good, was going to run, but then all of a sudden he shovels. Remember that little shovel pass to Josh Simon on Saturday?
Yeah.
Well, if you do that a little too late, guess what you're going to have downfield? Yeah. So those are little things that as you get in the middle of the year, you kind of want to say as a coach, we shouldn't be doing that anymore.
Right.
We should now be to that point of we're not committing that penalty. And what you said, like, as a parent, if you're not getting through to them, before you take their car keys and ground them for life, you go, how can I get through to you? Because obviously I'm not.
Right.
I got to figure a new way.
And that's one of the things that I've talked about with this receiving core especially is part of the discussion from Shane and Dowell, Mike Furry, Sean Elliott, hey, how are we going to choose the personnel and base it upon not just what they do with the ball, but what they're doing without the ball? Mm-hmm. Because I do think that's a big, big part of what's happening right now. There is a path, and it's only Wednesday. We'll talk more tomorrow and Friday about it. There is a path, especially with how Bama's maybe been playing on defense of late, to get there. Now, I also say that, and I know that Alabama went to Madison and won the game 42-10. Mm-hmm. And Wisconsin's not terrible. I'll say that. They might not be, the Wisconsin of yore, but they're not terrible. So I don't know which Alabama team we're going to see and how angry they are or how sleepy the crowd is or a whole mess of things that might go into the ball game.
It's interesting real quick before we and again, I'll give Tyler credit. He said to me, he researched Kalen DeBoer, right? Kalen DeBoer's first year at Fresno State, they lost back-to-back games. Kalen DeBoer's first year at UW, they lost back-to-back games. So maybe this is the pattern that happens on Saturday.
Ooh, look at Tyler. All right.
Tyler's, the wife's been working a lot of extra hours, so Tyler's got time to deep dive.
Real quick to conclude the drive around the SEC, again, a pretty good slate of games this weekend. The Red River game in Dallas, obviously. Florida is at Tennessee. Mississippi State at Georgia. Vanderbilt goes to Kentucky. UK 14-point favorites. You heard me right. And again, that big Ole Miss at LSU game is a very interesting one for a lot of reasons. But I think for Carolina fans, like I say, you played them both. You lost to them both. Those are your two losses. But you might learn a little something about yourself, or at least those two opponents, when they meet at Death Valley West on Saturday. Come back. Aaron Rodgers in the crosshairs of some over the Robert Saleh firing. He has spoken. Details when the postgame show returns. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show on this Wednesday. Jay Phillips, Terry Ford at Master Control for a few minutes. Appreciate his time stepping in as Elijah makes his way down to the fairgrounds for the Celebrity Boiled Peanut Eating Contest. He was not happy with his performance in last year's contest. Aims to do significantly better.
Wait, do you want me to give you the list of people he beat last year?
Yeah.
Okay, we're done.
Oh, wow. Wow, man.
Just saying.
Wow.
So you know where to go but up, right?
That's harsh.
Glass, hey, I'm going glass half full. Nowhere to go but
Well,
up.
that's good. Now he said he has a technique that he's not going to share so as not to allow other competitors to hear that ahead of time. So we're pulling.
You know, if this was a craft beer guzzling contest, I would put money on him in a second.
Yep.
I've watched him in action. It's pretty impressive.
But if there's other media types, I've seen them do it too. So,
That's a good point.
I don't know.
That is a good point.
Just saying. So, again, good luck to Elijah Campbell. Terry will be broadcasting live tomorrow from Brooklyn Baptist across the river in West Columbia on Highway 378. And, again, we're asking you to help us out with our community partners with Hurricane Helene relief efforts for the folks in our own upstate and certainly in the Asheville, Hendersonville, Western North Carolina areas. And it's like we say many times, non-perishable food items, canned food, bottled waters, a lot of things for babies, diapers, wipes, formula. Pet food is a big deal here, too. Toiletries of all kinds, and certainly things like paper towels, but even things you might not be thinking of, blankets, towels. It's going to get cold up in the mountains here now. And look, it was 50-something degrees overnight in Columbia. So, take another 10 degrees or so in the mountains. And on we go. Again, collecting at 12 Springs Community Church, Brooklyn Northeast, on Summit Parkway, Brooklyn Baptist tomorrow. And as we said, too, whether you help us out with our community partners or you do it at your own church, your office, your school, wherever, just do what you can. We've been helped. Time to do our part. And as we say, too, Milton is getting ready to run roughshod over most of Florida. So we'll be thinking about those folks. The good news on Milton, I just saw, by the way, it has weakened a little bit. Now, It's still a Category 3, so it is still incredibly strong with winds around 120 sustained around that big eye wall. But it has weakened a bit.
I 5 yesterday?
Yeah, for a little while out in the middle of the Gulf it was. So as it nears the coast, but tropical storm force winds are already over most of Florida as we speak. And it'll be making landfall soon. So just keep those thoughts or those folks in our thoughts, and we'll try to help them out too, just like they helped us out last week. So, but do what you can. And again, Terry will be broadcasting live tomorrow at Brooklyn Baptist as our Hurricane Helene relief efforts continue. So good stuff out there. Real quick. Hurricane Woody Johnson ran through the New York Jets fan base yesterday. He's the owner of the team. Apparently firing Robert Saleh did catch most of the Jets organization by surprise. I don't know who Mr. Johnson leans upon before he makes these decisions, but one person that was not consulted, according to this person directly, was Aaron Rodgers, who was on for his weekly visit with Pat McAfee today. Quote, as far as any of the ridiculous allegations out there, I'm not going to spend more than one sentence in response to it, and that is that I resent any of those accusations because they are patently false. It's interesting the amount of power that people think I have, which I don't. I love Robert. End quote from Aaron Rodgers.
Can I ask you a question? No.
You buying that? Or?
Well, I've heard from everything I've read from insiders, they say Woody Johnson did it. It was Woody Johnson.
Sure.
Consulting Woody Johnson. But here's my thing. If Aaron Rodgers was involved in it, would he go on Pat McAfee and say, yep, talked to Woody the other night?
No.
Kick that dude to the curb.
He wouldn't, and I think enough people would be able to say, listen, Aaron's out there saying he didn't do it, but he was in the meeting, and he absolutely said, I need you to, so, because he does have more influence than the typical quarterback, and especially in this organization now with what they spent and what they wanted to go do. One of the things that's kind of fueling this is that his former OC, Nathaniel Hackett, is his OC again. And there was a feeling that because the offense being so inept was going to lead Robert Saleh to at least reassign Nathaniel Hackett and have someone else call plays, and that was why Rodgers would have had a hand in this.
Here's my thought on this, and that's the ironic part. You bring up Nathaniel Hackett. He's the problem. Robert Saleh really wasn't the problem.
Defense is good.
Defense is good under Saleh.
It's been ranked around number 5. I think they were number 8 officially when he was fired.
You watch Hackett run an offense in Denver. How happy were you with that?
No comment.
Exactly. He's not good at his job. You know what he's good at? Being Aaron Rodgers' buddy.
Well, that's cool.
Because he was a quarterback coach in Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers loved him. And I remember Aaron Rodgers saying, "Yeah, Nathaniel, he's great. He's so funny. He keeps meetings loose. I love that guy." That's what gets you offensive coordinator gig. Make Aaron Rodgers laugh.
Right. He's a joke boy. Good stuff. Good to see you, sir.
Good seeing you always, bud. Always love hanging out with you,
thanks
man.
to Jack Veltri, Lou Bezjak for joining us today. Thanks to all of you. Be safe out there. We'll do it again tomorrow. See you. Love talking about my good friend Ben Cato and his team at Cato's Power Equipment. This time of year, it's especially important to have all the yard equipment that you need to keep things looking good. The grass is still growing. Make sure you keep it cut. But the leaves and the straw are falling, and you want to keep those off the grass all the time, right? You don't want anybody around the neighborhood going, man, that guy just doesn't keep his yard looking good. You don't want your significant other yelling at you to go get it done. Go see Cato's. Listen, they've got some great things now, too, especially battery-powered equipment that can help you out with a lawnmower, blower, other attachments, your edger, your trimmer. They've got a lot of things on sale right now, too. Chainsaws. Listen, we're going to have more things move through. Chainsaws and blowers really help keep things moving. You can help your friends out, too, when you've got a big situation. So whether you cut your own backyard, whether you do it for a living, see Cato's for excellent sales, service, and advice. Family-owned since 1983, 4012 West Beltline Boulevard. Always online at catospowerequipment.com. Go see them.